Hey. Good to see you all. We can't talk about you when we put it on mute now.
But you said that was always a technical
Indeed.
He talks about you. I don't do.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to our pre-match press conference to preview our game against Wolves this weekend. And if we can start off with Alan from Sky, please.
Yes, hi Frank, good to see you.
And you?
Following the obvious disappointment on Monday night, just reflecting on that, is the job a little bit bigger than you thought originally?
No, I got asked that after the match, and I answered it. So it's not bigger than what I thought. I knew it was challenging because when you come into a team that's in the form that we were in and the position that you're in, I think it's very clear for anyone to see. There was not many people when I came and asked me the question of how far up the league we were going to go. From the beginning, it's going to be, can we get security, Premier League survival, etc. So I'm very aware of that. And when you're in that kind of position, as we see with results, not just ourselves, but last night and currently with teams in that position, it's, there's a reason why Manchester City and Liverpool at the top of the league, they win most weeks. There's a reason why your league position is pretty true. And then there's a reason you have to fight out a way that you have to try and fight out of that. And sometimes it takes defeats and losing games and to show resilience and to show the fact that you can come back as a club and a team and individually. And that's just what it is.
Well, talking of resilience then, you've talked about reacting to being a goal behind and how that needs to improve. Is that something mentally that needs working on, the belief, etc.? Because that first quarter of an hour at Tottenham looked good.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you can analyse a Monday night, and it's our job to the nth degree, and make sure that you try and correct everything. And the reality is, yes, sometimes you have to be pretty simplistic about it. Some of the football decisions and the mistakes in the game were not good enough for us to go to Tottenham and win a game. They play very well. They're top-level players, but in particular areas, and we allowed them to do what they want to some degree, and that's not good enough from us. So that has to be firstly analysed because they're football mistakes. And then the second one is when you look at the bigger picture of the amount of time where we haven't won enough games away from home, then you go one step further. What's the mentality? When you look at the 3 games I've had away from home with the team, we have started pretty well. We've had a good period where we feel like we're in not control of the game but very steady in the game and playing, and then something happens and the game turns on us. So we have to take responsibility for that. Some of that will be mentality, but a lot of the things start with football reasons.
We talked about home advantage. You've got these 2 big home games now, Wolves and Newcastle. Vitally important, goes without saying. Wolves don't concede many goals. I think only the top 3 have conceded less. So do you need a change of approach on Sunday? Are we likely to see something different?
Well, I've changed approach a few times since I've been here, even as a short time, and that's generally been because of personnel and injuries. We've had 2 centre-back injuries in my first 2 games. And I think any team that, and we've seen it in recent Premier League history, any team that loses frontline centre-backs, 2 of them at the same time, becomes really difficult, and it changes your options. So it won't be a dramatic change of approach for Wolves. It will be an approach that we see relevant for the opposition in Wolves, and maybe a change because maybe we have players back that are now available that haven't been, and they're big players for us. Ben Godfrey's a big player, Damari Gray is a big player. So I haven't really been able to call on them, but now I can, and we need our big players.
So they are both fit and
yes.
Available.
Yeah.
And just with Dele Alli as well, not started a game yet. Are you considering that? Is he fit and ready to start? Yeah, he's fit and ready to start. And am I considering it? Yes, always. I think I have to, in this position, when you come in particularly fresh, you have to consider everybody. Everyone has to train to be able to play and deserve their place in the team. And it's an area of the pitch where we have good competition in forward areas, to be fair, and attacking midfield and wider areas. So the players just have to show that they deserve to have a start. I think with Dele, he came here having not played regular first-team football for a long time, and that has to be taken into account in terms of getting him fit. But at the moment, he's fit and ready. We're at that stage of the season where we start asking managers whether they set themselves a points target for survival. you're obviously looking at other teams' results. It's difficult not to, but is that something you have in mind? It could be a very low points tally that gets you survival in the Premier League this season. Maybe 4 more wins would be enough. Do you target things like that?
I don't think you can, because of what you stated there, that it will be relevant to what everyone else does. I think we have to be in a position where we consider the next game is the most important thing, to get points, to get confidence, to then roll into the next game. And I think we have a lot of games. There's a lot of points to be played for when you think there's 13 league games. So we shouldn't get too caught up in the end picture. We should look at what's right in front of us, because you see the table change very quickly for certain teams with a couple of defeats, a couple of wins. It can change the face of it. So our focus can only be on the next one.
It's a third of a season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just finally from me on the Chelsea situation, if you don't mind, Frank, obviously it's major news, and we have to take it in context with what's happening in the world, of course. Very serious for Chelsea. Roman Abramovich and the club well. I'm sure you know some of the people who are still employed at Chelsea Football Club, and their livelihoods are obviously at stake. We're hearing that people are losing their jobs already. What are your feelings for the situation with them currently?
Well, I don't know specifics about it other than what I read, like all of us. And I haven't read those headlines that you said about people losing their jobs. But clearly I managed there for near on 2 years. I played there for 13 years. I've got a lot of friends and people that work behind the scenes. And that would obviously be something on a human level that if people may be losing their jobs at Chelsea or wherever, that I would care about. So, and knowing them well, then of course I would care about that. I don't know the detail on it. And I care about the fact that the fans of Chelsea that will be there from the beginning and before us, and they'll be there after us. It's a tough moment for the club. So I don't want to hang on it too much, because I'm manager of Everton. It's absolutely my priority. And we've got real testing things in front of us. But of course, on a human level, of people that are just doing their jobs, working away, working with everything, giving everything in their jobs. And of course, if their jobs are in danger, then of course you care a lot about that.
And could you just give us a view from the player's perspective? You're not too long retired as a player yourself. They have to concentrate on the football, but is it difficult for them to do that in contract situations that might expire at the end of the season, etc.?
I think if you're in a contract situation, possibly. And when I say possibly, we don't know whether players have decided on their own futures or not. And you learn as a manager, having been a player, the players can worry about themselves. They may have something planned. I'm not saying they're not. They don't have emotions to do with what's happening at the club. I'm just talking about their own situation. And a lot of players, I think, generally in my experience, will just concentrate on the job in hand. And I try to do that as a player. But this is a bit bigger than that. I understand that. There is some doubt in the future and uncertainty. And not just Chelsea. I think we're watching the news every day and understanding what's happening in the world. It's bigger doubt and bigger perspective than ever. So maybe a contract position that you might be on a free transfer is not the main thing. Maybe it's what's going on in the world.
Thanks very much, Frank.
Thank you.
For your honesty.
Thanks, Alan. We'll go to Richard Graves, please, of Premier League Productions.
Frank, I appreciate what you said about still a third of the season to go, a lot of points to play for. So when you have evenings like last evening, for example, when you're not playing but teams around you are you the type of guy that watches it, keeps an eye on it, or do you occupy yourself with other things?
Well, it was my son's first birthday yesterday, which is flown by. So I kind of was juggling, as we do as parents, all of us at times, trying to, he's not that aware of his birthday, obviously. So to do the family thing, but watch the games, of course. I think there's a balance to it. I think sometimes it's a case of understanding you can't control it and you don't need to watch. But we're obviously playing against Wolves at the weekend, so that was a big focus of mine in terms of their game and having a view on Wolves. So. It's all about us. It's not, well, I say all about us. It's a huge deal. It's about us because we know those points are there for us to go and get and take, and then we'll be okay. But of course, you have an eye on everybody else.
And to that end, then you've already mentioned some of the injuries you've had to deal with it in your short tenure here already. On the back of a result like you experienced on Monday night, how do you weigh up the options going into the next game of playing experienced players in what's going to be a high pressure situation, as opposed to perhaps relying a bit on some of the younger talent that might be fresh-faced and take it all in their stride?
That's my job, is to balance. Is how people train. It's what they put into training. It's how they hold themselves through the week, because you see things in body language in people. And there's no doubt that it's a testing time. The modern day means that if you're in tough moments, as this club's been pretty much since early season. The players have a lot to deal with, and so it's my choice to pick the best team as I see fit in terms of training levels, playing levels, and how they're handling a tough situation. So yeah, understand it. As youth can be a good thing, but so can experience. It's up to me to completely find the right balance.
Where does Nathan Patterson fit in this wider scheme? Obviously played against Boreham Wood, still waiting to make his full Premier League debut. What have you seen from him?
I think he, as a developing player who's come into this situation, I think it's important that I get the right balance between helping him settle, helping him train, and this level of training with a Premier League team, and then seeing when is the right time to give him his chance. Of course, it's an area where we do have other players competing around that area. One is club captain, John Joe Kenny, other players. So I think with Pats, it's important that he keeps working, and when and if he gets called upon, comes in and does a job. And he did okay against Boreham Wood, by the way. In the first half, he was playing a decent match for his debut, and I had to make a tactical change, which meant he suffered, but I spoke to him after, and that's all part of being a younger player. But his future will be strong here. There's no doubt about that. And I have to make sure that the situation is right to bring him in.
Understandably, I guess we've spoken a little bit about the results away from home, but at home, there seems to be a greater intensity about this team, certainly better results against Leeds and a very good performance against Manchester City. I know this game was declared a sellout a month ago. How important is this Goodison factor in the home support?
It's important, and it's been a big pleasure of the job so far for me to experience it at Goodison. Not just as support for myself, which is always nice on a personal little level, but the team, what it does is giving the team energy and legs. And we talk about mentality and personality. Clearly, it's something that's given us a boost compared to away from home. So we can't rely on it, but it will be there because of what this club means to the fans, and they know that they can be, such a push and a drive for us. But beyond that, and on a footballing level, we have to think about Wolves and give them the due respect that their season and their individuals and their team and what they're doing in a minute deserves. They're a team positioned in the table because they deserve to be there. So it's a tough match for us, and we will need the help of the fans. But I don't think I even need to rally cry the fans. I can do, but at the same time, they'll turn up and they understand their importance. We're very thankful for that, and we need to deliver for them.
What do you make of Wolves? Because they've been in the top 10 all season long, pretty much, and yet they seem to have just flown a little bit under the radar.
I'm not sure. I think they've performed like that in the last few seasons, and teams are all about teams that can perform well, like a Wolves, is about consistency. I think you see a consistency. They changed manager, but there was a consistency in the way they played, a consistency in their idea of recruitment, a consistency that seems to run through the club, and a high level of player. It's that formula, put it together, and it brings something pretty positive, and that's what they are. So I don't think I don't understate them at all. Especially when you come to play against them, you understand they're a team that can have a lot of possession against big teams. They don't concede against big teams. They're good to watch in their own way. They have a real definite style about the way they play, and as I say, that takes time, and that started a long time ago in the Championship when they came up so successfully. So. Not surprised that how they've gone, and there'll be a tough game for anybody. That's what we have in front of us.
Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. We'll go to Julia Bowl, please, at Radio Merseyside.
Hiya, Frank.
Hi.
You can be physically fit and you can work with your players on the training ground to have everything physically sorted for games. But when confidence is low or results aren't going the way that they should be going, I guess it's a sports psychology side of it. How much of a challenge as a manager is that to work on the mental side of the game?
Yeah, it's a big part of the job. Simple as that. I think football, I felt it as a player, but as a manager, it becomes much more clear that there is a certain element of football that is your tactics and how you prepare on a football level. There's another huge part, which is how you get the place to feel and the environment and the atmosphere, and within that is confidence, etc. And generally, when things are great and everyone's winning, you don't even have to worry about it. It can tick over, and you just keep an eye on it. But when results aren't so good, then of course it's going to be affected. So I and my staff, you can't do that alone. I think it's very difficult alone. As a staff, you have to try to inject confidence, show clarity in what you're doing, and let the players feel that you're there in a support. And this can, it's good in the modern day. We don't feel that that's a little bit of a soft answer. We support our players and that because this world is so cutthroat now in terms of reactions to games and social media and all our reactions, that the players do need support. They're all in there trying to do their best for this club, trying to make sure we stay up, trying to enhance their own personal careers for sure, but also have a real deep care for this club. I can see that. So it's tapping into that in the right way, and that obviously will help, hopefully, with the right results.
You said after the Spurs game that things would be said, it'd be behind closed doors, so I'm not going to ask you what was said, but I'm assuming that happened. And how easy is it for players and yourself to all be fairly brutally honest?
Well, it's the only way. And you have to be very candid with the players. And I think the players should want that, because nobody likes Monday night. I've been in them as a player. They'll come along again. And we shouldn't overreact to it, but we have to do our professional job, which is to look at what went wrong within the game, mistakes that weren't in the idea of how we wanted to approach the game, things that happened on pitch. And some are understandable to a degree, some are not. We have to correct very quickly the ones that are not. So that was something to watch, not comfortable viewing, but part of our job, and then to work on the training ground to put it right.
You mentioned the pressure on players and how much they want to perform for the club. Someone who is at the top of that list is Anthony Gordon. I'm sure you don't have the time to troll through social media and see the debates on him, but do you think there's more pressure on him from Everton fans because he's the local lad, he's grown up as a fan, he wants it? Do you see that there's a bit more pressure on him?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I understand that. I came through myself as a local lad for a club, and sometimes the pressure is more intense. But I haven't really felt that in terms of what I've seen. All I've seen is a lad that trains really well with a great attitude and a real desire that oozes out of him every day, what he wants to do as an individual at this club and what he wants for the club. And then I see the reaction of the fans to him when they see a local lad that, against Tottenham, was by far and away our best player and shows a great attitude and application as well as high levels in terms of his play. So I haven't seen that. Maybe there is. And maybe that's good for him, because maybe if he can take that on his shoulders, it'll make him a much more well-rounded young man. He's just turned 21, so got so far to go. But what he's shown me at the minute is a mature player. And some players can handle that pressure because they have the talent and have the attitude. He seems to be that to me.
You have had a tough time with injury since you've arrived. You've lost players weekly almost at points in your time here. I just wondered how much you've worked with the academy side and looked at some of the younger players and looked at maybe if they could fill any of the spaces in the team. Yeah, I have. And I think it's something I always try to do as a coach, is work when you go into a club, form that relationship quickly. I played with David Unsworth. That's how old we both are, or I am, or however you want to say that. And so I know Unzi, and I know the history of the academy. I like to give young players a pathway and an idea that they can come into the team and help. It's a difficult moment at the moment, so it's not a moment to be handing out debuts willy-nilly. That's certainly not a priority. But young players are trained with us. They've shown up well. If needed, then I would have no problem to rely on them. But at the moment, it's a time to make sure that with the squad we have, we try and get out of this situation with the more first team squad and players. But that pathway will always be open when I'm here. Good luck for the weekend.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what that is in my ears. Yeah. Sorry.
Did I set that on?
Thanks, Julia. We'll go to Carl Markham, please, at the Press Association.
Hi, Frank.
Hi.
As a player, I can't imagine that you'd have had many experiences like your place had the other night. I'm just wondering when it did happen, what the response would have been in your dressing room then.
It's all relative. I had definitely situations where games were lost badly, performances were off, and I said this to the players after the game. This idea of a crisis talks or crisis meeting, I had them in seasons as a player where we went on to win the Champions League, for example. I'm not showing off there, it's just a reality. We came sixth in the league, performed and had our greatest ever season. So we should never get caught up in the fact that these things can happen and people have to be honest. But the idea is to find the right answer and the solution. So to hear players speak a bit is important for me. And some players spoke, and that's good. They have to speak and show that personality. But the ownership of it has to be mine as coach. And I am fresh to the club. So sometimes I find it a bit hard to take the constant negativity that kicks in instantly when something goes wrong here, because I don't feel that. I feel that this is football, it happens, we have to correct it. And the only way to correct it is by training well and showing resilience and showing character. And that's my message.
So some players have spoken, but it's not what you describe as we would maybe describe as a crisis meeting.
No, it doesn't. The crisis or non-crisis doesn't matter. That's just language. That's a lovely headline. So it's, as I was trying to probably answer there, that it's not a crisis. It's very normal. It's very normal. And I did have bad ones. I don't need to name them, but I had some bad personal ones, team ones, bad results. That happens in football. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it happens when you're in the position that we're in. So when people keep asking me, is this job tougher? I didn't think I was going to come here and win 15 games on the bounce and finish in the Europa League positions. I knew that there would be tough days, which is the moment when you really have to dig in and find the right way forward. And we haven't been here a long time as staff. So we've been able to affect some things, a lot of things, particularly at Goodison, and some things we haven't. And that will be our absolute aim in this next period as staff and club together to affect the things to get the right results.
Thanks, Carl. We'll go to Alistair McGowan, please.
Hi, Frank. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Alistair, I can.
I don't know if you can see me, but that's probably a benefit.
I can see you.
A little bit. But I just wondered whether you had, obviously there was a lot of, you say about the negativity there and people snapped into that, but obviously it was a bit of a crushing result on Monday. I just wondered if you had a message to fans who were fearful of relegation.
A message to fans? Well, I mean, the message to the fans from my point of view, and I think I keep saying this in my answers here, is that this is I'm very much ready for the fight and the challenge, and nothing has surprised me since coming in. You want positive results every week, but the reality is that it wasn't always going to be that way. The fans will see that in us on Sunday, I'm sure, in terms of how we approach the game and perform, I hope. But the message for them has to be, we appreciate their support. I remain very optimistic and confident about the team because I have belief in the team. But the reality is that we need results. I don't think, it's a question that's quite difficult because I'm not going to sit here and kid the fans. Our position is what it is. What we have to show is the fight and the character to stay in the league as a base and perform at a level that wins us games.
I'm just wondering, with the opponents coming up this weekend, does it help that you have someone as a director of football who used to work for the club?
No, because he can't play up front and score a hat-trick. So it doesn't help at all. I'm making light of it, but there's no input from Kevin. He worked at the New York Red Bulls for a serious part in between, and the preparation for the game is clear for us as a staff and with players.
And just last of all, I know you don't want to go too much on what's happening at Chelsea, but obviously you're someone who sort of benefited from Roman Abramovich's reign during the course of your time at Chelsea. And I just wondered, based on what's happened this week, whether you reassessed your relationship with him based on the fact that government have said he's had close links to Vladimir Putin.
No. One of the questions earlier said that I'm close to Roman Abramovich. I know Roman Abramovich. I could probably count on one hand how many times I've seen him in the last many years. I worked for Chelsea Football Club, which was an absolute pleasure to work for Chelsea Football Club for 13 years. And that's exactly where I want to leave that one.
Thanks, Alistair.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of the...
Sorry, Andy. Could we just ask about Michael Keane? How is he after Monday? And you also said he hadn't been well.
Yeah, Michael Keane was suffering a bit of a fever going into the game. So the thing about Michael that people don't see, or that situation, is that whilst he's below par and we needed him, and he played in the game. And I remember doing that as a player, and you don't always get plaudits. Sometimes afterwards you wish you hadn't. But the beauty of it is that he's dedicated, professional, and as a lad that he wanted to put himself out there. Suffered in the game, came off because he was suffering. Has still been suffering for a couple of days afterwards, but now he's feeling better.
He's okay to play.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That's the end of the open section.